Hey gang, what's up? Welcome back here to another edition of The Fishing Teacher, and thank you very much for checking today's video out. Much appreciated. Today, guys, we're going to give you tips and advice for fishing flooded cover during high water conditions, because I think that probably May and June are probably the two of the months that if you've got high water in a lake, a lot of times that's when you get it. And even if you don't have high water where you fish at right now, eventually you're going to. So I think today's tips are going to help you guys out quite a bit. So anyway, guys, before we get started, just want to give you the weekly reminder about if you're having a hard time on your lake catching them, check out our Fish the Moment lake map breakdowns. This is a great resource to learn more about any lake in the country that you fish. And even if we don't have it on the website, you can book a virtual lesson with me to go over any lake in the country. I'll put the link in the description of this video, the lake map breakdown. You can check that out. Much appreciated. Okay, guys, if you said, man, Randy, let's go fishing, you can go fish in any situation that you want to do. What do you want to do? And it would be flipping flooded cover. I love flipping flooded cover with a jig or creature bait. There's just something about when you get close to a fish and you're pitching and flipping into that flooded stuff, and then you see your line twitch or you feel that weight. I just love it. It's just because it's normally exciting when you get a bite because you got to fight them out of there. So it's really cool from that aspect. And I'm fortunate to be from a part of the country where we have a lot of those scenarios to practice that at. So I got real familiar with it. But I want to give you guys a basic foundation of how to approach it if you're not real familiar with it. There's a couple considerations that you have. When I talk about flooded cover, I'm talking about, flooded trees, flooded bushes. And it depends on your part of the country what type of species you have, but it's all the same. It's either a flooded bush or a flooded tree. Now, the two considerations that you have to have when you're determining how to approach it is the water clarity and actually how high the lake is. Because, say, for example, if the lake's just a couple feet high, you may only have a foot or two of water in the flooded cover. And some of the lakes, like around in my part of the country, it can get 20, 30 foot over normal. And you'll have bushes in 20 or 30 foot of water and everything in between. So that is also a factor to consider. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about water clarity. If your water clarity has, like anything else, it has a big role to play in how deep the fish are going to be. So if you've got a dirty lake, say for example your water visibility is under like 1.5 foot visibility, those fish are going to be shallow, and you need to look for the cover that is in shallowest water. So let's say for example you have 12 inches of visibility and the outside row of bushes or trees are in like 5 or 6 feet of water. That's probably too deep in that water clarity. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to move up and try to get into shallower part of the flooded cover and target that, say, that 1.5 to 3 foot zone. That's where those fish are going to be. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, say, for example, you're fishing a lake like here in my part of the country, Bull Shoals Lake, where you've got really clear water. Those bushes that are in 8 to 10, 12, 15 foot of water, you can still catch fish flipping in that real clear water. So in that situation, the fish are going to be in the deeper bushes, and it's all relative to in between that. So you got one extremity of dirty water where the fish are going to be in a foot or two of water, one extremity when the fish are going to be in the really deep water flipping, and everything in between. So sort of get a feel for that. And a good judge for that, let's say if you got average water visibility of 2 to 3 feet, which is sort of average in most lakes, in that situation, most of your prime flipping is going to be if the bushes have like 3 to 5 foot of water in them. That's going to be ideal scenario for that. So the next thing with that is the water clarity will dictate your techniques a lot of times too, and the type of lure to choose. When I'm flipping bushes, I'm usually flipping some type of a jig or a creature bait or a tube, something I can get down in there pretty quick. And again, I let my water clarity dictate the color. If the water visibility is under like 1.5 foot visibility, like we talked about in the first scenario, I'm going with dark colors like a black and blue, a June bug, a red bug, something like that. And if the water is cleaner, like 4 to 5 foot clarity, I'm using some type of a green pumpkin or watermelon, and everything else in between. Again, if that water visibility is sort of in that 3 foot range, I may use like a green pumpkin, but I may put some chartreuse or orange dye on it to brighten it up just a little bit. So it's a matter of experimentation. You don't want your lure like to stand out too much, but you don't want it to blend in versus the water clarity with that. Now, the type of areas that you fish flooded cover in, it completely depends on where your flooded cover is, because Most of the flooded clever you're going to find is going to be back in the creek arms and the cove arms on the flatter banks. Those bushes naturally grow on flatter banks. Now, if the water is extremely high, like 20 or 30 foot, you're going to have flooded cover all over the place. But most of the time, guys, when a lake is high, it's normally like 2 to 5 foot above normal a lot of times. So search out the type of areas that have those flatter banks, the flatter slopes, gravel, small rock, anything like that where it extends out farther away from the bank. And those flats are some of the first places those fish will move up on. Now, a flat point is naturally a good magnet for it, but a lot of times, like the back end of coves can be really good, even in the summertime, because sometimes the back of the coves will have the deepest water in it. And another thing about flipping bushes, one of the things that I'll give you guys some tips and advice is when you're, say for example, you have a bush in front of you and you're looking in there, try to look for the darkest area of that bush, the shadiest part and the thickest part. That's normally where those bigger fish are going to be. So if you've got a bush that has limbs growing all over it, don't pitch and flip around the edge limbs. Try to go right in the center of it to hit that base, because if you pitch into a flooded tree or flooded bush, the tree root comes down and then it has a base, and a lot of times that base will be open underneath there. You may have limbs everywhere, but the base has an open area, and those fish like to live around the base of that tree. That's a key piece of information for pitching and flipping. So anyway, guys, just give it a try. Get you some 20-25 pound test Seaguar and Vizx line, a good flipping stick, and go after it, man. It's a fun way to catch them. We'll talk later. See you.